Is that okay, right?
Mm.
Just I made this small presentation in the morning today. Uh, and please feel free to just interrupt me anywhere. We are only two or three people, so just don't hesitate. Wherever you are facing any, you have any questions, just interrupt me, right?
Sure.
Okay. This is how it is. Okay, so basically, as I told you guys, we are into study abroad, and this particular webinar will be to introduce you towards giving you a broad overview about our products, as well as what we need to do as to start as we start the new office in this week, right? So
Okay.
we are into the primary products will be the three exams. Like one is SAT, which is primarily for your undergrad students, like someone who wants to go for a bachelor's or undergrad in US or Canada. So he'll have to take this exam SAT. GRE is primarily for one second. GRE is primarily for someone who wants to go for grad PG, basically postgraduate. There they call it graduate program. So if you want to go for those kind of things, this is the exam which you have to take. And third exam, which is IELTS, it's primarily an English proficiency exam. So since we are from India, the perception is okay, we don't know English enough. So we have to have this exam. We have to give this exam and qualify it in order to make sure that okay, we are good in a good standing there when we interact with our professors or when we interact with our peers. So it is an important exam. So most of the PG or UG programs will require IELTS or TOEFL. So these are two alternative exams. IELTS is English International English Language Testing System. So it's an English proficiency exam. So you have to clear this if you are going to go for your masters or undergrad studies in any of the first world countries, right? So and in fact, the acceptability of IELTS is very wide. Like it's been accepted in almost 130 to 135 countries in the world. So trust me, if you want to go and study outside, this is the exam you have to take. And GRE and SAT, basically these are aptitude tests. Similar to like if you want to do MBA in India, you might have to give some sort of an aptitude test, right? It could be CAT, it could be CMAT, it could be SNAP, or it could be that, right? So what they test there, they test your uh, math and verbal skills. So GRE and SAT are similar to that. So these are the three products. And then once the student has given these exams, then we work on their applications. Once you decide, okay, once you discuss with the student, okay, you want to do this particular program, you want to go to this country. So you'll have to apply to those universities. So those are also tedious processes and which basically students are not able to do by themselves. So for that, we as a counselors help them. So application process is again a very important thing, and there are students who will take their exams themselves and they'll come to us for the help that they want to do the application. And finally, last thing is the visa. So any country, once you have secured the admission to the university or the program, so you'll have to secure a visa before going there, right? So each country, like UK would have a different process, US will have a different process. So we as counselors will help you with that as well. We'll help the student as well, right? So these are the primarily products which we have to work. Okay. So is that okay so far? Can I go ahead, guys? Okay. Let's go.
Sure, 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 sir.
Yeah. So as an introduction to Skill Master, so this pretty much sums up that we have a very strong streamlined process as far as these exams or these process for application and visa is concerned. We have a broad product portfolio, very strong and broad product portfolio in terms of the countries, in terms of the exams, in terms of the universities which our students are applying. So that's we have a very strong portfolio that will be reflected in our results. You can go and I mean, if you have time, Mehma, you can sometime go and check the Facebook page for Skill Master. So you'll see a lot of universities and programs our students are applying. And finally, the last and I would say the most important thing is a successful student experience. So once all these things are done in a streamlined manner, students when they secure their visa successfully, that is what we strive for, right? That is our end goal, that they should get this visa and then they reach to their destination successfully, right? So today I'm going to talk about why study abroad, like why should someone go to study abroad, right? Why not in India, or why not in Kerala itself, or why not in Bangalore, right? What is stopping them? And then we'll briefly talk about the counseling services, like how you can help, how as a counselor you can help these students if they want to achieve their goal of studying in countries like US or Canada or UK. And then I'll talk briefly about these three exams: SAT, GRE, and IELTS. Okay, so that's going to take you probably 30-35 minutes ahead of this slide, right? So why study abroad? The basic thing is the, the, the most important issue which we have here in India is what? How many, like most of, if I just talk about the two major branches where majority of the students will be applying for, one is engineering, another one is medical, right? And there's a huge number of people going for these things, right? So how many students appear for IIT JEE? Do you have any idea, Mehma?
No, I don't have any idea.
I would tell you, last year there were 15 lakh students, 1.5 million students who applied for IIT JEE. So now IIT JEE is being conducted in two phases. One is JEE mains. This is the qualifying exam where 15 lakh students will apply, and out of that they will select roughly 2 lakh students in the first phase. Those selected will go and take the advanced level, which is JEE advanced. CISO must be pretty much aware because they are already running a successful practice in their school itself. So those 2 lakh people will take that exam, and out of those 2 lakh, probably 30,000 ranks are published. I'm not going to say that those 30,000 will get into IIT, but at least they publish those 30,000 ranks. And if you want to get into the top 5 or 6 IITs, which were the original IITs, so that'll be roughly 3,000 seats. And since today, in these times, most of our students who are appearing for IIT JEE, everyone wants to get into computer science. So if I want to apply to those top 4, 5, 6 IITs and want to get into computer science, so that is roughly 500 students. So if you want to get into a top IIT and study computer science, so you have to be in the top 500 in the country. So that is how tough or stiff the competition it is, like unimaginable levels. Students I know are studying right from 8th class. They are preparing for IITs, and there is no guarantee that they'll end up in a computer science department in a top IIT. So that's pretty, I would say, very highly unlikely in terms of getting those seats. And same, I would say, same level of competition is there for medical as well. So for medical, they have to give NEET, right? NEET exam. And if you are trying to get into AIIMS or any government medical colleges, it is really, really very tough. So I'm just giving two examples. I'm not getting into commerce or bachelors of art, because everywhere, if you want to get into a pretty good school or top schools, it's going to be really tough. So that's one issue, that not everyone can get into the top schools, or not everyone can get into the top medical colleges. What are the other options if you are not able to get into these IITs or medical colleges or AIIMS? What are the other options? Unfortunately, what is happening, if these people are not getting able to get into IITs, the other options which are available are pretty mediocre and expensive. Hence, that is the place where we come into picture. If someone wants to say get into, say, study computer science in a very good college in, say, US, someone who thinks he cannot crack IIT JEE, so why waste time and money on preparing that? Or even if he had prepared for that and he's taken like 11, 12, he studied for these, was not successful, and he thinks, or he believes that he cannot prepare again, and instead of going to a local mediocre college, engineering college in Kerala, if he wants to study computer science in a US based college, that is where we come into picture. That is where we can help these students realize their dreams or achieve their dreams, that they can study in a top 100 US university for computer science with the same kind of fees, because private colleges in India have become expensive, and there are, which I'll come into the next few slides, there are huge scholarships available for undergrad students in US. So including those, we can make sure that these students can study in US within the same budget which their parents have thought about, if they compare it to the private colleges in India. So this is where the need for study abroad can arise, right? So that's what where I was coming. If you are not able to get into IIT, what are the alternatives available in India? So as far as engineering is concerned, some of the private colleges that you might be aware of is SRM Chennai is there, then Vellore is there, well VIT in near Karnataka, right? Then Nirma is there. So all these are expensive colleges. Like if you, these are not at par with IIT, but they are like below that or even below that. They are even below NITs, but NITs also require good marks, right? So if someone cannot get into IITs or NITs, they will try to go towards SRM or Nirma or Vellore, right? So those are expensive. So that's where this question arises: what can we do about it? So that is where we will help these students understand that they can go and study computer science in US with huge scholarships, right? So I'll move forward, and when I explain you about the SATs and how much code do they require, that I'll explain in the next few slides. Okay. So another thing is, okay, we have explained this idea to the parents and the students about study abroad, but what is stopping them to go for study abroad? Any idea, Nema? Okay, we'll
Expense
say,
mostly,
so expense,
first of
yeah,
all.
first of all, expense. Yeah, that's true. Because everyone thinks if I send my son or daughter for this thing, study abroad, so this is going to cost me like 40, 50 lakhs per annum. So if he's going to study for 4 years, it's going to be like 1.5 to 2 CR, which is partly true. Because if you don't get scholarship, if you are targeting like the top schools and Ivy Leagues, they are actually that much costly. If you go to the top schools in Australia, it is going to cost you at least 30, 40 lakhs per annum. But as I said, that we have earmarked or we have figured out a few universities in US. They're like 10, 15 or 20 universities in number, which are big on providing scholarships to international students, like our students. So if they score well on SAT, if they have good marks in their 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th class, if they are scoring like 75, 80 plus, they can think of going to these colleges on like 80 to 90% of scholarships. So that is one of their major fear, that okay, it's going to be hell of expensive, right? But then once we convince them, okay, if your son or child does well, he can go on these kind of scholarships. Okay. So that is one major concern which we have taken care of, right? A few more concerns are there which are genuine, and in that case, you'll have to sit with the parents and explain them and convince them. So though some of them are fear of unknown, like in Kerala, your one of the parents will send them to Trichy, not Trichy, this Kochi or Trivandrum, any top college or any top private college. So they know, okay, my son is in the nearby vicinity, like 2, 3, 4 hours of driving. So whatever happens, I'm there. I can just reach there. So here, sending your son or your 17-year-old kid to UK or US, which is 24 hours or 8 hours, 9 hours flight away, and where I don't even have a visa. So yes, that is a genuine concern. That is one thing. Second, these students are pretty young and they have not been away from their home ever, right? So if they go, they'll think, okay, I'll be homesick. I don't want to go. That is another concern. Third one is that most majority parents who are business, who have large, huge businesses here, right? So if their only son or daughter is there, they might not allow them to go. See that, okay, what if he decides to stay away there? That I'll not come back. Dad, I'm not going to come back, and I'm not going to do your business. So that is another concern. Okay, as a father, as a parent, I have created this huge factory or manufacturing unit, and if he is not going to come, so that is another fear where one of the fears of parents. That's what I've heard. So again, you'll have to sit with the parents and explain them why it is a good idea to send your son or daughter to study for going for study abroad, right? So these are some of the queries which parents come and tell us. So that is what I wanted to tell you, right? So usually someone who would be willing to go for study abroad will be mature enough. Sometimes what happens, okay, 17-year-olds are mature enough, okay, they are responsible, they want to go, they want to explore. they want to study well. So those people are the students which we need to target. And this is, I'm mind you, I'm only talking about the undergraduates. In terms of graduate students, someone who's already done his engineering and want to go for PG, these problems might not happen because they are mature enough, they are already 22, 23-year old. So that's not a problem at all. But these kind of problems will only occur or only happen when undergrad students are involved, right? Is that okay so far, Mahima?
Yes,
Any
sir.
questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
No,
great. Let's
no, no
let's
questions.
Tijo, all good?
All good, all good, all good.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk about counseling services. Like as a counselor, we need to guide our students better by assessing their abilities and aspirations, and we have to offer these services which are listed down. Are you able to see those slides properly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. So basically, see, whenever a student comes, majority of the time the student will be clueless that he doesn't know anything. I'm talking about grad student, someone who is in third year, final year of his BCom or BBA, or someone who is in third year of his engineering. He's disillusioned. I've chosen computer science, but I don't like it. My parents asked me to choose computer science. I don't want to do that. What shall I do in my PG? I don't want to do any job in computer science. So as a counselor, first of all, we have to think through his mind and see what other options we can provide him. So that is a thing which we have to learn, like what career options are available for someone who's doing his bachelor's in computer science, or someone who is doing a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, or someone who's doing his bachelor's in electronics and communication. So we have to understand his passion, we have to understand his aptitude. Okay, what he's good at, is he good at numbers, is he good at the managerial kind of thing, is he good in communication and he can take care of some technical stuff. So we can provide him some techno managerial course which will allow him to make to do something related to technical, but as well as working with a team in a cross functional manner, right? You have to work with cross functional teams, right? Because marketing ke saath you have to work, then you have to work with finance, those kind of things. So we have to assess his strengths, we have to assess his weaknesses, and we have to also assess what he likes, what he doesn't like. And based on that, we can offer him some suggestions. Okay, you could go for masters in supply chain, or you could go for masters in finance, or there's a new field called business analytics, you could go for MS in those. So as a counselor, first we have to get acquainted with these kind of things. So it will take time. That is the part which will take time in terms of the entire process. Rest of the things might come easy to you, but this thing will take a little bit of time. So for that, we'll be providing you some uh, guides and material for all those things. Okay, for this kind of profile, this is the sample profile. This guy should go to this thing, this particular course or this thing. So once you decide a course accordingly, then you have to also suggest the student the country or the programs based on his budget and what his end goal is. Say, for example, someone who has a decent budget, he can go to US, but then US allows you to work there on H1 work visa as well, right? But now many students are saying, okay, I want to stay there throughout my whole life. Yeah, I want to immigrate. I don't want to come back. I don't want to come back. So in that case, Canada might be a good option because Canada, they have a scheme called express entry visa. I'm just telling you, just keep in mind these things. So there, once you get that visa, you become a PR. You get a PR. PR is permanent residency. That means you become almost a citizen there. It is equivalent to the green card in US. And once you get a PR, within 3 years, you can become a citizen there. So someone who wants, boss, I just want to go and I don't want to come back. So Canada might be a better option. Someone who says, okay, sir, I want to go, I want to do a good job, I want to learn well, I want to stay there for 5 7 years, and then I'll think if I can come back. That I'm a manager in Amazon, I want to come back to Bangalore 7 years down the line. So US might be a better place. So these things will come with time, and we'll also help you in terms of guided materials. We will provide you some guides and some case studies, and based on that, you can also learn, right? And in some cases, students are already have already determined, okay, sir, I'm doing mechanical, I want to go for this design course in US or UK or this particular university. In that case, it becomes a little easier that you don't have to decide for him. He's already decided then you only have to decide for the courses, like courses as in universities, right, and country. So those are the other things. So once you decide, okay, you have to go for this course, you have to go for this country. So once you finalize that, you and the student, then we can see the eligibility criteria for that particular program. So say, for example, you want to go for, say, Baruch College for MS in Finance in EON, right? So you know that you will require GRE, you'll require IELTS. So you can suggest, boss, for this particular college or these kind of colleges, you will need to give these two exams. So we are providing coaching for these. These are the charges, these are the timing, these are the schedule, and this is the timeline. Okay, so if you want to go for in fall, August 2022, you have to start preparing for GRE from this month. You'll in the next 3 months you'll prepare. In the fourth month you will give this exam, and once you are done with this exam, we'll take another exam which is IELTS. It will take you 1 month, and once you are done with that, we'll start with the application process. So all these things come later: the test guidance, the pre-application services, the application, and the visa. The first and the foremost thing would be talking to the student, guiding them, and providing them course and country, career course and country. Okay. So does that make sense to you, Mehma? A little bit? I know, see, these things I don't know about your background. Sijo sir told me that you've done your MBA,
Yes,
right?
yes, sir.
So study abroad will take some time. It will probably take 2 to 3 months at least to get familiar with, be able to provide courses and countries to students. And right now, as me and Sijo discussed, so the first and foremost priority is to help with the SAT, right, for the school,
Okay.
right? And later on, as we proceed, we have to work on the PG students and help them for GRE and other countries as well.
Sandeep,
Okay.
Yeah,
there is a small updation on that.
yeah,
We thought we'll go full-fledged GRE and SAT at the same time because under the present COVID conditions,
yeah.
most schools will open 11th standard by July end or August.
Okay,
Okay, but colleges are opening up.
okay, that's good. So
So
we
it's
are
better that we focus on colleges for the next few months and
okay,
focus on GRE
okay,
and then get into SAT.
okay, that's fine.
Because those who are interested in see because that said we will plan it accordingly, but on a first step for a product offering, first I would like you to train Mahima for GRE,
Okay,
as in what is GRE, the
okay,
pink
okay,
ribbon.
okay. As an exam, I'll discuss those in today's session as well.
So yeah, that part of it, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, Mehma. So these
Okay.
are the mostly these five aspects a student would require from us, right? And the most important would be first ascertaining what exactly does he need. So that the first part is the most important part, and that is where most of your efforts would go in the next 2 months, right? Let me go to the next slide and see what we have. Okay, so Skill Mastro as a HO from the Indore, what we are going to provide is, so we already have an app created on the Google Play Store, right? So we already have recorded lectures, online tests, and study material for various exams. So GRE, IELTS, and SAT. So whenever we enroll a student, we can always show them that in addition to the online Zoom classes, or I'm not sure if you have started or if you are planning to offer offline classes now, but here at Indore we are still offering them online live classes. So you can always tell them that in addition to the online live classes, we are also offering you recorded lectures. We are also offering you online tests, study material for all these exams. So that once a student enrolls, he can directly download our app, and we will have a batch ready for Thrisu branch, right? SAT underscore Thrisu or something like that, and GRE underscore Thrisu. So your students can enroll in that batch, and they'll have access to all the videos, all the online lectures, all the study material, and test also, right? Then, other than that, we also have a course finder tool, which I mentioned to Sijo earlier. So basically, if someone comes to you, ki, ma'am, I'm doing BCom final year and I want to go for MS in finance or MBA in UK. So we have a tool, you can just put in the course, which you want to apply to, and then there you'll say MS in finance, you'll write the country, you'll write the intake. Okay, which intake does he want to? You just click on search, so you'll at least get a few programs. Okay, he could go for Baruch, or he could go for University of Massachusetts, Boston. So you'll get a list, and you can shortlist those based on his budget, and you can click on a button, export, and it will create an Excel file for you, and you can take a printout and give it to you right away. So what it creates is that this counselor is very sharp. He just understood my problem, and he gave me a list of university within a click of a button. So that creates a very good impression. So those tools are also available with us. Although the sample space of universities is much lesser than the entire. So some are universities which are direct, some are universities which we go. So basically, this is the basically parts part sample. It's a sample of universities. So it's good to have to be able to give it to our students, prospective employers, prospective inquiries basically. Then other than that, we'll have constant guidance from our experts. So me or Pankaj sir, or maybe I have a couple of other experts in US and other markets, say Canada. So if we have already created one group, and we'll create, basically we'll include you. You are, I think, already there, right? So if you have any inquiry coming in, so you don't know what to ask him or what to say to him, you can always just get a form filled up with them. Just click to us, just send it to us, and we can tell you, okay, we can have a call, and we can uh, guide you what you can ask them, what things you can suggest to them. So that is going to be maybe a short term thing until you become an expert yourself, right? So that is there. If say you have some query which needs to be resolved, so you can always write to us. So our team will be very prompt, and we can resolve your queries um, in terms of giving this courses to prospective inquiries within 24 hours as well. And just like this session, we'll be providing you weekly training sessions on various aspects of study abroad, various programs and countries and GRE and all these things. So we are planning to have a weekly session of training you and the teachers or the trainers in the Thrisu or the Thrisu branch, right? So just like we are keeping a recording of this session, we'll have other knowledge transfer sessions, and we can keep it available to you on our common platform, right? Okay. That's there. So this is my app, Skill Master. If you go to Google Play Store, you will find this skill by the name Skill Master. This is the logo. So you can also download it, and we can add you in a batch where you can see what kind of things are available. So this app is mainly for teaching, not for the counseling part, but for the teaching. Right. So this is available on Google Play Store as well as on App Store as well. Okay. And yes, in the next slide, I have this course finder tool, which I was saying, right? So we'll provide you a login for the Thrisu branch where, as I was telling you, look, you want to write, say, MS in business analytics, you'll write the intake and the year. So just like this, I write business analytics, I write 2021 all months. And if here I put PG, I clicked on PG. In country, I want to choose courses only from United States of America. And then I study area, I put discipline, and then duration of the program. In requirements, I want all the programs which require IELTS and GRE. And then I click on search. And the next slide, it's giving me options, right? So here, what you can do, you can click on shortlist whatever programs you like. Like it gave me 9 results, right? You like 4 results, you click on shortlist, and then on the top left, there's the option of download. If you download it, it will get downloaded as a Excel file. So once you download that, you can print it out and give it to the student. So the student, first of all, gets impressed, okay, that the counselor was able to give me quickly some options, and then he can go and research. And then probably the chances of him enrolling with us increases, right? Okay. Let me go ahead to the next thing. So now I'll be talking about the 3 exams which I earlier mentioned briefly, right? So SAT is basically, as I told you, that it is It is basically for undergrad students, like people who want to go for undergrad. So the full form is Scholastic Aptitude Test. Nobody, although use that, they only mention it as SAT. So it is composed of 4 sections. So there are 4 sections. First section is reading. Second is writing and language. So these are two related to English. Then you have 2 more sections for math. Now the math which they require is of 10th class level, not very advanced, but only 10th class level. But the challenge is to get as much as possible. A good score is like getting a full score. Most of my students are getting out of 800, they are getting 780, 790, or 800. So getting marks on the math is not difficult, but then getting good marks on reading and the writing part is difficult, because mostly we've seen that in India students do not pay much attention to English, right? Right from fifth or sixth class, parents will force them to do science and math, but they'll not ask them to do well on English. So that is one challenge where our students lack. The fourth part, essay. So essay, I think they are going to scrap from this year. Essay will not be there anyway till this year. Also, it was optional. Like if you are targeting top universities, then only you should take essay. Otherwise, you could skip that. Now, College Board is the company that administers the SAT. So the website is collegeboard.org. I would request you to, after this webinar, you can go to this website and read about SAT. That you'll get more knowledge from there. Just give me a moment.
Okay.
Now, this year, what happened? Because of COVID, SAT was severely affected, and since it's not a computer-based exam, it's a paper-based exam, meaning people will go to the SAT center and they'll get paper copies. They'll write the exam. They'll fill in the answers in the OMR sheet, and it gets calculated or it gets evaluated in the old-fashioned way, like we used to have 20 years back, right? So this year, because of COVID, many centers were closed last year. So most of the universities said that okay, we will not require SAT from for this year. So many students came ki SAT has been scrapped. So shall I need to take it? Or so in our in our world, or in our opinion, I would say if you are able to take the SAT, you should take it, because we are not just aiming for admissions. We are aiming for scholarships, and that too very high scholarships, almost 80 to 90%. So, anyways, ours is CBSE or state boards are not well recognized by universities in US. So, SAT gives us an opportunity to excel well in an exam which is being recognized by their boards, their universities. They know SAT ka level will be the same here as well as in the US, right? So if you score well, they'll know, okay, your analytical abilities are very strong. So we encourage our students that you have to take if you are planning to get good scholarships, and if you have a high score, it also helps you get basically in the visa also it becomes easy. The visa officer, while asking during the visa interview, they might ask you what is your SAT. If you say I have a 1450 SAT, they will get impressed, and chances of your visa getting approved increases. So we always encourage our students to take the SAT. Even though some universities might have scribed it, but for us it's good. It's one pointer, which it's one indicator which where we can excel, right? So it's helpful for us. So we always suggest students to take the SAT, right? Shall I go ahead?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So how is SAT organized? So basically, this is the way these are there. Basically, reading section will have, it's the first section. It is 65 minutes, and it has 52 questions. Then there is writing test. Writing is only 35 minutes, but it has 44 questions to be done. And then there are 2 sections of maths, and the sum total of those 2 sections is 80 minutes. They have clubbed the math as one, but actually there are 2 sections. One is without calculator, one is with calculator. So total time allotted will be 80 minutes, and there will be total 58 questions. Now essay was optional, and this year onwards, I think they'll scrap it. So this 50 minutes will be removed, right? So essay, we only suggest people who want to apply to top universities, like top 30, top 40 universities, will always encourage them that you should take that. So that increases the time by 15 minutes. So it's 3 hours if you don't take the essay, and it's almost 4 hours if you take the essay, right? So this is the general organization of the SAT. Now this year, SAT happens 4 to 5 times a year in India, right? So here, if you can see, the SAT is happening. SAT is happening. Next SAT is happening. One is, I think, in March, but I don't think your students will be able to take that. But next will be on May 8th, right? And May 8th ke liye you have to register at least a month before, and the result of this will be on May 21st. Yani, if you take the test on May 8th, in 2 weeks you'll be able to get the result. Similarly, the next one will be August 28th. For that, you have to register by July 29th, and the result you will get in 1 month, almost 3 weeks. Third one is October 2, and the result will be by October 15th. Fourth one is December 4th, and you can get the result by this thing. Kya bolte hain? December 17th, right? So it is held about 4 to 5 times a year. Super scoring is possible. What do you mean by super scoring? Super scoring means, super scoring will be basically, say for example, 800 is quant math, 800 is verbal. So first time, say you took the May attempt and you scored 600 on verbal and 800 on math. So total will be 1400. Next time in August you took, now you scored well on English, which is 800, and you scored less on math, say 600. The sum total is again 1400, but super scoring will make sure that, okay, the committee or the university will see the best score of verbal in both the attempts. So first time you scored 600, second time you scored 800. So the best is 800, right? Same with math. Math maybe first time you scored 800, next time you scored 600, but the best is 800. So from both the attempts, they'll take the best of your English, best of your math. So that will be 800 plus 800 equal to 1600, right? So although you might have scored 1400 both the time, but if you use super scoring, your actual super score has increased by 200 to 1600 points. So we usually encourage, if someone is in 10th standard and he's preparing with us, we encourage him to take up multiple times, 2 or 3 times if it is possible, right? So that way their scores improves. And then the score validity is for 5 years. So for example, someone takes this SAT exam in 2021, his score will be valid till 2026. Means if he takes the exam in 10th class, in 12th class also his score will be valid. Even if he takes a drop in his score will be valid again, right? And the best time to start prep for SAT is right after 10th class. Someone asks you, okay, is it too early? No, it is not too early. We can always start early. Right after 10th is the best time, right? Let's go to the next slide. What does it take to get into top universities in USA? So we have to, basically they look at our profile holistically. Majorly they'll look at GPA from 9th to 12th class. They want to see what have you done in high school. For them, high school is basically right after 9th class. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th is the entire 4 years is high school. So they want to see what have you done in these 4 years. Then obviously your SAT score. Then there are subject SATs as well. Like for example, if you are a physics PCM guy, like in 12th class, 11th class, you took PCM, physics, chemistry, math. So you might want to take subject SATs. Like they are like specialized SAT where they'll ask you physics or chemistry or math. So there are in total 16 or 22 subjects. So you could take those just to show, okay, here is my general SAT score. But in addition, I've scored well on my physics SAT, which indicates that I'm good in physics, or I've scored well on my math SAT, which indicates again I'm very good in math. So those kind of things. But from this year, I think what I'm hearing is that they are going to scrap subject SATs as well. We don't know for sure right now, but this is what we are hearing. But so far, our students have been taking subject SATs in addition to the general SAT score, right? So this is as far as another exam to show them that what we are good at. Other than that, they want to look at your leadership activities in these times. Like say for example, you're good in debating and you've attended a lot of MUNs, Model United Nations debates, right? Or maybe you are good in kabaddi, or that's where you have, right? Kho or kabaddi, Fijo?
Kabaddi.
Kabaddi, yeah. So maybe you have won a state level championship. You are captain of the school team which won the state level championship. That will show them that you are good at some extracurricular activities. Or maybe you are good at reading, so you created a reading club or book club within your school, and you have conducted a few activities. So that shows basically your initiative other than your studies. So they want to have a holistic profile. They don't just want nerds. They don't want people who are just good at studies. They want people who are all rounders. They are good at taking initiatives. They are good at some other hobbies as well. So these are the things which we also want in our students. We don't want nerds. I mean, obviously they are also good, but then if you have some other activities that will help your profile, right? Yeah. So how can I bag the maximum scholarships, right? How can I bag the maximum scholarship? So that is one major thing which uh, which our students are going to ask, because we are publicizing that only, right? That we will send you with a lot of scholarships. So first we have to understand what kind of scholarships are available to our students. So universities in US, and now when we are talking about SAT and scholarships, we are particularly talking about US, because US is the country which is giving you these kind of scholarships. No other country is going to give you this much scholarship. So if we have to send students, or we have to publicize that we will be able to get huge scholarships, the only country we are looking at is US. If someone asks you, okay, I want to go to Canada on scholarship, not possible. If someone asks you, I want to go to UK or Australia with huge scholarship, not possible. They might give you 10 to 20% scholarship, that's it. They will not be able to give you 80 to 90% scholarship. That is only possible in US. Now, talking about those scholarships in US universities provide two kind of scholarship. One is merit based, another is need based. So merit based, as the name suggests, merit based is basically they look at all the points which we discussed in the last slide. Basically, they are looking at your merit, how good you were in studies, how good you were in extracurricular, how good you were in leadership activities, so on and so forth. How good was your SAT score? That is one thing. So they might give you 40-50% scholarship based on your merit. Second thing is need based. So they will also, some universities provide need based. So they'll look at the financial situation of your family. So for that, they might ask you for some. There's another form, like some forms we have to fill, extra CSS forms and all, where we have to provide all the financial situation of our family, like our ITRs for the last 2 or 3 years, and then we have to explain properly. Okay, out of this income, this is my expense and this is my disposable income. So, for example, someone's father earns 8 lakhs per annum, and if we can explain, okay, after all the expenses, I'm only able to save 3 lakhs per annum, and that is what I'm going to be able to provide to my son. So say for example, a university's annual fee is 20 lakhs and they have already given you 12 lakhs of scholarship, which is 60%. But even after that, if you have to pay 8 lakhs, so if they look at the financial situation and see that, okay, this guy is only able to pay 3 lakhs, so they'll give additional 5 lakhs of scholarship, which is need based. Looking at the financial situation, okay, I've given you 12 lakhs of merit based scholarship, but I'm going to give you 5 lakhs based on your financial situation of your family. So that way, that will be 12 plus 5, 17. So out of 20 lakhs, he'll only be paying 3 lakhs, right? So this is how the need-based thing works, but this can potentially lower your chances to get an admit. Now, some university which would have given me need-based scholarship, if I ask him more, they'll say, okay, no boss, I cannot give you more, so I'll reject your application since I cannot give you more. So if I only, so the prior statistics of our students work like this. So if out of 10 universities, someone applies only on merit base, he might get 6 admits. But then if he applies also for need base, he might only get 3 admits. So the chances decreases if you ask for need base. This is where our expertise come into picture. So we, based on a profile, we can tell you, okay, where you should apply for need base and merit base, and where you should apply only on merit base. So that is where our team will help assess your student's profile, and we'll decide, okay, for which profile, which university we should ask for need based, and or we should not ask for need based, those kind of things. So that is where we'll help the Thrisu team, right, Sijo?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask Mahima, how's it going so far?
It's good, sir.
Just
I
Understood.
learned few things.
yeah, I know it's a lot to take right now, but just absorb whatever you can, and the recording will be available. I'll
Sure.
provide you that, and whatever I'll share the presentation as well. So whatever questions you have, you can just write back to me on WhatsApp or email, whatever is comfortable to you, right?
Sandeep, just share us the PPT of this.
Yes, yes, I'll do it right away.
Sure, sir.
I'll do it right away after the session.
Not the PPT also, so that we can work on customizing it to the local
Bilkul,
conditions.
bilkul, we can. I'll share that. Okay, now this is a slide. It has a lot of information. Actually, in the earlier presentation, it was into 3 slides, as Sijo might remember, right? So I combined all the things in one, right? So I'll go one by one. So basically, what I've done, I think Sijo had asked me earlier, like PCM, for PCM students, what branches and what universities we can suggest. For BCom guys, what branches and what universities we can suggest. And these are all universities which are huge on scholarship. And for humanities and liberal arts, like bachelor, someone who wants to do bachelors in arts, music, philosophy, psychology, what we can suggest, right? So let's start with PCM students. Okay, so PCM, after PCM, someone can go for computer science. Most of your students would be inclined for going for computer science. Some of them might go for non-computer science, like mechanical engineering, civil engineering, or aerospace. Aerospace is a very hot right now because not many universities provide these kind of things. Other than IITs, I don't think any other universities provide aerospace branch, right? So for that, you can always go for US. So the prominent universities where our students have gone in the past and have scored huge scholarship is Drexel University. It is in Philadelphia. Then in Texas, we have University of Texas Arlington. Then in Connecticut is close to New York. It's Fairfield University, where students have gone on almost 90% scholarship. Then University of Massachusetts Amherst is there. Arizona State University, Georgia State University. Each year, 2 to 3 students go to Georgia State University. University of South Florida is again good in giving scholarship. My student this year, one of the students is only paying $5,500 per annum in University of South Florida, and he's studying computer science. Then we have Whitworth State University. Then Sunny Buffalo is famous. Texas State is there, and then UT Dallas is there. These are some of the universities where our students have gone on huge amount of scholarship based on various profiles, different profiles. Then, if you talk about commerce students, so for commerce students, students can go for bachelor's in business. So just like BBA here, people do bachelor's in management, BMS, right? In St. Xavier's, Mumbai, people go for BMS, or in a local colleges, BBA is very popular. So this is similar to that, but the best part is it is 4 years, and you can always specialize in finance or information systems or applied economics, applied statistics, or business analytics. These are some of the choices where you can go. Of course, bachelor's in business can always opt for minors in arts and humanities. If someone wants to do bachelor's in finance, bachelor's in business, he can major in finance and minor in music or psychology or whatever, right? Again, some of the prominent universities where our students have gone on huge scholarship is Drexel University. One of my students who graduated from Drexel University for bachelor's in finance is working at a Goldman Sachs right now, Goldman Sachs New York. Then Texas Christian University is very good. It is good, pretty good. Then Indiana University, Bloomington, Fairfield, Sunny Buffalo, Whitworth State University, Caldwell University, it is in New Jersey, and then Baruch College again is pretty good. It does not provide any scholarship, but then it is pretty cheap. The fees is only $12,000 or $13,000 per annum, so that is also good. That is where me and Sijo studied there for our masters, right? Last one is bachelor's in art. So there are a lot of people who don't want to go for engineering or business, right? They are more creative and they want to do some creative course, right? So for them also, there's a concept of liberal arts colleges. So mostly like Drexel and UT Arlington. These are all full-fledged universities. Full-fledged universities means they will have uh, this thing. What do you call it? They will have
All the education.
bachelors and masters and PhD and research, everything. Liberal arts colleges are like they'll only teach bachelors. They'll say, oh, no, we don't allow any masters or PhD or those kind of research and all. We'll only focus on teaching the undergrad students, and we'll also focus on multi talented things, multidiscipline, basically multidisciplinary. Like a student can go for major in computer science and minor in music. That is, so this Whitworth University, Whitworth is very famous. So many of my students, almost like 7 or 8 students, are studying there, and one of them is like majoring in computer science and minoring in music. Another one is majoring in this thing, finance, and minoring in literature. Those kind of things. So that is only possible in liberal arts colleges. So आप अगर देखेंगे, if you see this Illinois Wesleyan or Colgate or Whitworth State, these are all liberal arts colleges, and the best part is that they are huge. They are pretty generous when it comes to giving you scholarships to international students. So many of my students, they are studying in liberal arts colleges and they are doing wonderful. And the best part, these employers also love liberal arts students, because these people bring along a creative side, right? Baki other students, if you see, they are like hardwired, left brain hote na. I'm good with numbers, I'm good with code, but these people are like right brain, left brain, ulta. I'm saying the other way around. Basically, they are creative also. So companies need creative people, right, for out of the box solution. So that's why you will see big, huge companies, JP Morgan, Goldman, Google, they hire these liberal arts students. They love these students. So it's a wonderful thing to sell, basically, just because they'll give you good scholarships, and these students will do pretty well, right? So this is a very important slide for us in order to study, thoroughly observe, and then put it to in front of the students, right? Can I go ahead, Mahima? So far, good.
Yes, sir. Sure, sure.
ठीक है, चलिए. So I'm just putting out some results. So this guy is Abu Zaid Khan. He went to Drexel University with 80-85% scholarship. So the total scholarship amount was 1 crore 35 lakhs, and with 3 paid co-ops, means that within the semesters he'll be able to do 6 months, 3 internships of 6 months, where he'll be paid anything like $18 to $20 per hour. So that amounts to like 18-20,000 per co-op. So you'll be able to earn 50 to 60,000 in these 3 co-ops, right? So that will probably cover his 20% of that thing which is remaining, right? He went for computer science. Then there's this guy Apur Joshi. This guy went to this Whitworth State University. So this was the guy I'm talking. He bachelor's in computer science, minor in music. So he's actually a very good guitarist, and he's in the school band, college band. So he's doing pretty good, and he went on 90% scholarship. So he's paying only 4 lakhs per annum as his tuition. That's it.
Mm.
Then this is Chaitanya Vyas. He scored a 1330 on SAT out of 1600. He went to Texas State University for bachelor's in computer science. Again, 90% scholarship, and annual, and his tuition is almost 4 to 5 lakhs per annum. That's it. And he's working on good projects there. He's working on projects which are being funded by NASA and this thing, Microsoft. He's working on augmented reality. Then this is the guy who scored 1400. He went to bachelor's in finance, Baruch College. So he's in his 3rd year right now. Although he had a admit from Drexel with same scholarship 80%, but he chose to go to Baruch just because he wanted to stay in New York. So again, he's not paying much. He's paying $12,000 or $13,000 per annum. That's it. He did not have any scholarship, but the school is cheap. School is not very expensive, right? Then this is the girl Devyani Joshi. She went to Fairfield University for bachelor's in psychology. Again, she had full scholarship, so she did not pay anything. And so she is in liberal arts. Psychology is liberal arts branch, right? So she wanted to do something in psychology, and she's doing very well. She actually mailed me some time back that in after first year she was in the dean's list, like in the top 10% of the class. Okay, these are some more results of SAT. So far all these results have been for undergraduates. I did not put any grad results, although the grad results are pretty impressive as well. So this guy went to Drexel for huge scholarship. He had a good SAT, 1510 out of 1600. He went to on a 1.5 crore scholarship for Drexel. Then this guy Hemant Maheshwari, he went to Fairfield. Again, almost full scholarship. Now this guy is graduating this year in computer science, and he's already got a job in the university itself. His salary is $86,000 right after school. Yuvraj Sharma, he was my first student for undergrad. He also went to Drexel on 100% scholarship, and he's done his bachelor. He's working with a professor. Next year is applying to PhD. So he's working on an Amazon project given by Amazon to the professor. He's also doing good. Then Shivesh Jadon, he went to Texas State University, almost 1 CR scholarship. He's doing pretty good. Aviral Dubey, Texas Christian State University, he went for bachelor's in finance. Again, huge scholarship. He's paying only $5,000 or $6,000 per annum. So these are all pretty good results for us. So the crux of this thing matter is basically that undergrad we can send students if they are good. Now these guys are by no means super excellent. These are above average students. Their 12th class result would have been like 80-85%. SAT is somewhere around 1400, but they were able to go to top colleges and studying in top branches, mostly computer science, and doing pretty good, right? Let's talk about, I have GRE and IELTS. I think I have a few slides. So if you have some energy left, I can do that. Or if you want, I can do that next time. It's up to you. I think 8 or 10 slides are there. It will probably take 20 minutes more.
Okay, sir, carry.
I can carry, right? So it's a brief about this thing. So the way we talked about SAT, this is GRE. GRE is Graduate Record Examination, right? So graduate record examination is basically, as the name suggests, it's for graduate studies. Like if you want to go for, just like you take CAT for MBA here, you take GRE for any MS program, right? So that reflects your mathematical and analytical abilities, right? And it measures your verbal, maths, and analytical writing skills of students aspiring to undergo graduate studies abroad, right? The test intend to aid graduates in assessing an application potential for advanced study. And if you have to go for PG in US or maybe top schools in Canada, this will give them an additional pointer. Okay, if the GRE is strong, means you are good, probably good. So most universities in the US, while inviting application for MS program, will ask for GRE. Most of the universities, if you have a good GRE score, it will give them a indicator of how good you are, right? So they will require it. And जैसे वहाँ पे the way we had college board conducting SAT, here we have ETS. ETS is Educational Testing Services. So this is the guy, or this is the organization which develops and administers the GRE. Okay. So GRE is entirely a computer-based test. Like unlike SAT, which is like paper-based, so this is computer-based. So you have to go to the center. They'll log into your computer and they'll give you a test. And no two students get an identical set of questions. So that is what is. They have a huge set of like lakhs and lakhs of questions, and they will give you a random test. So each student will get a random test. No two people are sitting together, they will not get a same question paper. So the test is scored on a maximum of 340, means math will be 170, verbal will be 170, right? Out of 170, they'll test you on math, out of 170 verbal. The GRE test is 3 parts: quantitative, verbal, and analytical writing assessment. The following is the GRE test structure. So मैं आगे आपको बताता हूँ. I'll tell you in the next slide how is the structure. So let's look at it. So GRE is analytical writing. So first 1 hour you have to have 2 tasks. One is basically these are writing tasks. So 30 minutes per task. For 30 minutes you have to write something on an issue, and the next 30 minutes you have to analyze an argument and writing about that argument, right? And after that you'll have 5 sections: verbal, quant, verbal, quant, verbal, or quant, verbal, quant, verbal, quant. Yani after this analytical writing, if you get the first section as verbal, so you'll get 5 sections, out of which 3 will be verbal, 2 will be quant. Or if you get first as quant, so first quant, third quant, and fifth quant, and second and fourth verbal. So 5 sections will be there, but out of that, one of them, whichever is coming first, like if verbal is first, so there will be 3 verbal sections. So out of that, one will be unscored, like a experimental section, which is only for their testing purposes. So you don't know which one is experimental. You have to take those 5 sections and you have to treat them as if all of them are actual. So that's an extra 30 minutes you have to work on some and you have to assume that this is not experimental. This you got, Mahima? So essentially, you are taking 30 minutes per task, like 1 hour for this, and then there will be 30 minutes into 5 sections, and almost
Sir,
2.5 hours.
really?
Yes, tell me. Yes, Mahima. Yes.
Carry
Yes.
on.
Okay. So you understood, right? Basically, what we have to do, and there is an experimental section which still we have to give, but that will not be counted. That is what I have written there. One unscored section, right? This is what how it will work, right? So that's my last point is that an unidentified unscored section is included and will appear in any order after the analytical writing section. It is not counted as part of your score, right? Scoring is basically the writing section is between 0 and 6 in 0.5 increments. Like you could, after that, the first thing, this first section, analytical writing, right? So you might score a 3.0 out of 6 or a 3.5 or a 4.5 or 2.5. So the incremental value will be 0.5. Either you'll get 2.5 or 3.0. You won't get 2.75. You won't get 3.25. So you'll get 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, so on and so forth. The math section, both the math section ka combined will be 170 points. So the way they score is not from 0 to 170. They score between 130 and 170, which means the minimum, even if you leave the section blank, you'll not get 0, you'll get 130. So the scaling is between 130 and 170. You get that, Mema?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Similarly, verbal also, the scaling is between 130 and 170, which means even if you leave the section blank, you'll get 130, you'll not get 0. So if I combine that, my total score range from 260 to 340. So if some student comes and tells you that I scored 260 out of 340, don't think that it is 80%, it is 0, right? And if someone says I have scored 300 out of 340, so 300 is in between this, it's the midpoint. 300 is like middle of between 260 and 340. So he's scored roughly 50%. So we should not assume 300 by 340 is roughly 90%. No, it's 50%. So that is one distinction, right? And that writing scores are separate. They are not added. That 3 scores or 3.5 score in AWA, that will be separate. You don't add it to the verbal and math score. That is written separately. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, I'll go ahead. So some general FAQs, frequently asked questions. So let me just quickly go through these.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So does admission to the university depend on the GRE score? Yes, it is one of the various criteria that the admission committee looks at. However, a good GRE score does improve your chances of getting admission and financial aid. So it's not everything, but if you get good score, it will certainly improve your chances. It's not everything. Most important thing is your CGPA in your graduation, right? So if you have good GPA in your engineering or BCom, that will also help. But if you get a good GRE, it can certainly improve your chances of getting admission and financial aid. Does one have to be a graduate for taking the GRE? No. You can, even if you are in first year of your college, even if you are in second year of college, you can take the exam. All you need is you need to have your passport ready. Third is, what is the cost registration of the GRE? So the GRE fees is USD $213, which is roughly translates to 16,000 rupees these days, 15 to 16,000. So after the test takers are asked to submit the names of 4 colleges that they would like to send their scores to. This facility is part of the USD $213 fees that is charged for the test. So I'll tell you about it later. So basically, once you score GRE, you also have to send the score to the university. So for that, GRE charges you, ETS charges you $27 per university. So that is pretty expensive. But at the time of taking the GRE, you can send this score report to 4 schools for free of cost. So that 4 schools is $27 into 4 is $108, right? So that you can save while taking the GRE. How do you register for the GRE? You can go for gre.org, or I think you should go to ets.org also. There you can register online, right? You can create your profile and you can look for this thing. You can look for the dates. So all over India, the GRE is being conducted throughout the year. So you can go and book the date. So for example, you are from Thrissur, the nearest center probably would be Kochi. So look for Kochi center. They'll give you the dates. Okay, the dates for March is available on say 15th March and 27th March. So whatever date you like, just click on that. Then they'll give you the slot, morning slot or the afternoon slot. If you like the afternoon slot, just click on that. And then from there, you just go and pay for the test, right? How many times in a year is the GRE exam held? So GRE is offered usually on working days in India. The test schedule can again be obtained from the website, right? How many times can I take the test? I can take the test unlimited number of times with a gap of minimum of 21 calendar days, which means if on 1st of March, if I screw it up, I can again take the test on 22nd of March, right? So there has to be minimum 21 calendar days between two tests, and you can take the test only 5 times in a calendar year. And in a year, I cannot take more than 5 times. It is very expensive. Obviously, nobody takes 5 times, max to max 1 or 2 times, right? Because each time you take the test, you have to pay that $213, so which is very expensive. So students try to give once only, and if they screw up sometime, they will probably give it again, right? Find what is the validity of the GRE exam. Again, 5 years from the date the test was taken. So if you take it today in 2021, 2026 tak it will be valid, right?
Okay.
You can use that test for the next 5 years.
Okay.
How soon will I receive my score? So you'll see the score for the math and verbal section the moment you finish the exam. As soon as the exam is finished, you can see the scores for the math and the verbal section that out of 340 you will immediately get. But the official scores, like on the report card, plus the scores of the essays which are done manually, like the scores for the AWA will be manually. So that takes about 7 to 10 days. So after 10 days, you will get the report card. How do I pass on my score to the colleges where I want to apply to? So that can be done only through the website on the portal itself, right? So the portal where you create your login and all that, where you book the exam, once you get the score, now you say want to apply to Baruch College or Carnegie Mellon. So you can go there. There is a section called report scores. You can click on that. You can put the college name, like you select 3 colleges. So 27 into 3. So they'll ask you to pay $81 there right away. That you can do. Next one is, how do I take GRE? If I take GRE more than once, which score would be considered? The best score will be considered. Don't worry about it. So don't worry ki today I scored 300. Next time I scored even bad, like 290. So they'll take the first one. So they'll take the best of those. Don't worry about it. Right? How do I cancel my exam date and get a new one? Oh, can I cancel my exam date and get a new one? Yes. If the test registration is cancelled till 4 days ahead of the test, 50% of the fees will be refunded. So for example, your date is 15th of March. So by 10th of March, even if you have to cancel it for some reason, maybe your exam was, your preparation is not up to standard and you want to take more time. So you'll get 50% of the fees refunded. But after 10th, like 10th or 11th, if you do on 12th, if you want to cancel, they'll not refund you anything. So you have to be cautious for that. Okay, I think there are last 2 or 3 slides. Just bear with me. It's about IELTS. Now, IELTS is basically, as I told you, it's an English language proficiency test, which is being accepted in more than 135 countries in the world. So if you have to go outside for study abroad, whether UK, US, Canada, Australia, Singapore, you have to take this exam at least. Majority of the universities will not ask for GRE. Only US based universities will ask for GRE. But for IELTS, everyone will ask. So this is a very important exam. So this is required to be taken by non-native students. So we Indians are non-native. Our native tongue is not English. So it is being required by us. So as to study in countries where the medium of instruction is English. IELTS is accepted by universities in Australia, UK, New Zealand, Canada, and US. All the 5 top countries. IELTS, TM is basically the trademark here. That's why I mentioned it. So IELTS is a trademark of IELTS. So test all 4 language skills that are important for effective communication, speaking, listening, reading, and writing. IELTS is conducted in India by 2 organizations. One is IDP, another one is British Council. So they are being done by 2. British Council is in UK, IDP is on Australia. So you can take any one of those, both are accepted. Like for example, in Indore, we have the center only by IDP. We don't have a British Council center. If someone wants to give an IELTS organized by British Council, he'll have to go to the nearby city Bhopal. So accordingly, आपके यहाँ भी even in your place, probably Kochi would have some center. Maybe IDP or British Council will have to go and check on the website. So for detailed information about IELTS, we have to refer to the official website of IELTS, which is www.ielts.org. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Again, reading is 60 minutes. Scaling is the way it was there, 340 marks. Here, each section is 9 bands. Like the AWA was 6 bands, right? 6 point, 0.5 and those kind of things. Here also it is between 0 and 9, and each item is worth 1 mark, as in, I mean, the scoring will be something like that. You will be scoring, I think it is 6, you'll get 6 or 7 or 8, something like that, right? Let me check. I'll confirm on that. So basically what happens, you'll be scored on between this. So you might score 6 here. In writing, you might score 7. In listening, you might score 6. In speaking, you might score 7. So if you take the average, you'll get the average marks on IELTS, like 6 plus 7 plus 6 plus 7 divided by 4. You might get 6.5, something like that, right? So the marking is between 0 and 9 for each section, and they take the average of that, right? So for reading section is 3 passages and 40 questions. So they'll have 3 questions and 3 passages and 40 questions to be answered within 1 hour, right? Then writing section consists of 2 tasks. One is writing task 1 and writing task 2, and candidate must answer both the tasks, right? For listening, we have 4 sections, each with 10 items. Each item is 1 mark. And finally, speaking is only for 11 or 14 minutes, and it's a one-on-one thing, face-to-face interaction between the candidate and an examiner. Now you don't have to worry, the examiner will also be an Indian guy. So they'll be talking more about their general speaking. So for example, they might come, okay, Mehma, where do you belong to? You'll say, I belong to Thrissur. Okay, what do you like about Thrissur? What are your hobbies? Those kind of things. So here at Skill Mastro, we help our students prepare about all these questions. So we'll guide you on that as well. So what I would recommend, maybe once you have your teacher CISO, so we can add them to our batches and they can attend our classes both for GRE as well as IELTS.
Sure. No.
Right. So that will help them, and I'm sure, and I'm hoping that you might have started looking for a trainer as well.
Started.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Right. Scoring again. Here we come. Right. Scoring is between 0 and 9 with 0.5 band increment. Right. So reading can be between 0 and 9 with 0.5 band increment. So that you might score 5.5 on reading, or 6 or 6.5. Same with listening, writing, and speaking. And overall, you take the average there. Right. Now, average cutoff or qualifying for IELTS is 6.5. Most of the universities will require that you score on an average 6.5 band out of 9. And individually, you should not go lesser than 6. Like in Canada, if you score 5.5 in one of the sections, it might be problematic. Not for US. US only look at the overall score, which should be 6.5. Like even if I score 5 on some section, but 7 or 8 in other sections, that might be still okay with US. But Canada also look at programs. They also look at the individual sections as well. Right. So that was about the exams as well as the process. I'm hoping by next week I'll also have another session conducted for countries and programs. Like you what is US famous for? What kind of programs? What are the top universities? What are the top programs? So I'll probably do a session for those as well in the next week or so.
Okay, sir.
Right. And in between, I'll talk to CISO and whatever. I'll share some more study material and these kind of things. So I can create a Google Drive with you guys, and then we can take it from there, right?
Okay.
Yeah, Sandeep, that'll be great.
Right.
And also, if we can now see, this is a overall view.
Yeah.
If now about GRE, a little more depth. See, now
Yes,
somebody
yes.
interested in GRE. Okay, this can be even if you